Welcome back to the cryptoworld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Bitcoin is still playing out the bearish rising wedge pattern, but the Bitcoin liquidation heat map is revealing something very interesting, which I'll talk about in just a moment. And on top of that, even though Ethereum is playing out a short-term bearish signal, a massive bullish pattern for Ethereum is just about to break, which I'll talk about later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, just giving you a quick update here on the weekly Bitcoin chart, and right now the price of Bitcoin is still playing out that exact rejection from the golden pocket, which is sitting in between around 48,000 to 50,000. And so once again, as I've been saying for a while now on the channel, this golden pocket is significant resistance for the price of Bitcoin, so we're likely going to see some rejections from that area exactly as expected. But ultimately, after we play out this rejection, whether it's just a consolidation or a further pullback, either way, eventually at some point when we break out above the golden pocket, then that will significantly increase the chances that we'll quickly head up towards the all-time high. But once again, that golden pocket is still acting as significant resistance for Bitcoin, where we're most likely going to see rejections from, and obviously that's sitting between the current price and the all-time high. So that's the next major obstacle. And if we're taking a look at the daily time frame, obviously this bearish divergence is still playing out, which I've been talking about over the last couple of days. Obviously, we have higher highs confirmed in the price, and we still have lower highs confirmed here in the daily Bitcoin RSI. And so once again, what this means is we're due to see reduced bullish momentum, which usually plays out in the form of either choppy sideways price action or potentially a bit more of a pullback in the price of Bitcoin as the most common outcomes from a bearish divergence. Now, as always, it is important to understand that a bearish divergence by itself does not guarantee that we're going to see a massive bearish trend reversal. Obviously, it does not guarantee that because once again, it basically just tells us that right now we are lacking bullish momentum and we could perhaps see an increased amount of bearish momentum, but not necessarily a bearish trend reversal. And if we're staying on the daily time frame, looking at the DXY or the US dollar index, and right now, technically speaking, even though this has bounced just recently, it's still forming lower highs and lower lows, at least for now, which is a bearish trend. And once again, as I've been saying over and over again here on the channel, if the DXY is trending in the bearish direction, I am bullish on the price of Bitcoin in terms of the trend here on the daily time frame. But obviously, during a bullish trend, we can see short-term pullbacks and short-term bearish price action even during a bullish trend, just like how during a bearish trend, we can see short-term bullish price action during a bearish trend. And so that's basically the situation right now. We have not yet confirmed a trend reversal on the daily time frame. So technically speaking, we're still currently within the bullish trend. And if we're staying on the daily time frame, obviously the price of Bitcoin is still within this ascending parallel channel, which is technically the price trending in the bullish direction. And the support line for this channel is sitting at around 39.6K. And so even if we see a drop all the way back down towards that level, towards around 39.6K, and then bounce from that level, technically speaking, we could still remain within this bullish trend, within this ascending parallel channel. And the resistance for this channel is sitting at around $48,000. And obviously, just recently, we've seen a perfect rejection once again from this line of resistance. And if we're taking a look at the shorter term, looking at the 4-hour Bitcoin chart, right now, the price of Bitcoin has finally hit the first technical price target for this rising wedge pattern, which was sitting at around 42.6K. And in fact, at least as of right now, as of recording this video, the price of Bitcoin has perfectly bounced from 42.6K if you're looking at the 4-hour candle closes. And if you're taking a look at the 4-hour Bitcoin RSI, just recently this has entered into oversold territories, which basically means we have limited room to the downside, at least in the short term. And so what's most likely going to happen, simply based on this chart right here, is we're most likely going to see a slight relief, either some choppy sideways price action or a bit more of a slight bounce here, because if we see sideways price action or slightly bullish price action, that can help to reset the RSI, which can actually give us some more room to the downside later on. Because technically speaking, we have not yet fully completed the rising wedge pattern, because the full technical price target is sitting at the bottom of the wedge, which is basically this area of support sitting in between around 40,500 to 41K. And obviously, so far, the price of Bitcoin did get very close to that price target, but at least for now, we've only hit the first technical price target. And so technically, that second price target is still active. And so obviously, if you took this short position anywhere near the breakout or even halfway down when I covered it in my last video, obviously right now you're in huge profits. And if you took some profits around this technical price target, which I talked about in my last video, obviously this could have been a very profitable short position. And personally, when I'm taking these trades in the price of Bitcoin or any other crypto, personally, I take these trades trades over on Bybit, so I'll make sure to leave a link to Bybit in the description down below and in the pinned comment. And in fact, if you use that link down below this video to make a Bybit account, you can get up to a $30,000 deposit bonus, but only if you use that link down below this video. But for whatever reason, if you cannot access Bybit or if you cannot KYC on Bybit, there is also Bitflex, which is another crypto exchange similar to Bybit, but you don't need KYC for Bitflex. And so I'll also make sure to leave a link to Bitflex in the description down below and in the pinned comment. And if you use that link and deposit $100 worth of crypto or more and to make one trade over on Bitflex, you can get 10 USDT completely for free. And so if you're trading crypto anyway, you might as well use those links down below this video to get set up ready to go on one of those exchanges using those links if you want to get those extra bonuses. But anyway, taking a quick look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, and what we can now see in this chart right here is obviously just recently the price of Bitcoin has taken out a lot of liquidity to the downside, which is what I've been talking about recently on the channel. Obviously around 3 days ago when the price was all the way back up here, I was talking about how there's a lot more liquidity to the downside than to the upside, which is bearish for Bitcoin. And I reconfirmed that in my last video, basically saying that this is looking more bearish than bullish because we have more liquidity to the downside than to the upsides. But what is now happening is obviously we've already taken out a lot of that downside liquidity, and right now some liquidity is beginning to build back to the upside. And so we do have some early liquidity levels at around 44.1k to 44.2k, and some more liquidity at around 45k, which means it's possible we could see a short-term bounce up towards some of those levels. But ultimately, after we perhaps take out some slightly higher levels of liquidity, if we're actually zooming out on this chart right here, we can see even more liquidity further to the downside, closer towards that technical price target for the rising wedge pattern. Because as you can see right here, we have hundreds of millions of dollars worth of liquidity sitting at around 40.3k. So basically around this area of support just here, there's a lot of liquidity. But remember, due to the fact that the RSI is oversold and we've already hit the first price target, it's possible we could see a slight bounce or some choppy sideways price action in the short term to take out some of that short-term liquidity to the upside. And then perhaps after that, we could end up completing the rising wedge pattern as one of the most likely scenarios in the short term. And remember, a bearish divergence is playing out on the daily time frame, resulting in reduced bullish momentum. But remember, on the much larger time frames like the weekly chart, even though we're seeing a strong rejection from significant resistance, technically we're still very much within the much larger bullish trend. And something similar can be said for Ethereum here on the weekly chart. Obviously, the price is still trending in the bullish direction, forming higher lows and higher highs. And right now, we're still technically breaking out above this important Fibonacci level, which is sitting at around 2.4k, more specifically around 2440. But technically speaking, this breakout still needs to be confirmed with at least a weekly candle close, and the next weekly candle close is in roughly around a day and a half from now. And so at least as of right now, this breakout has not yet confirmed, even though the price is attempting a breakout. But of course, if it does confirm, then we should expect some support at around 2.4k, with previous resistance flipping into new support. And the next significant levels of resistance on the weekly time frame for the price of ETH are first of all sitting at around 2.9k, but above that we have the most important Fibonacci area on the chart, the golden pocket, sitting in between around 3.4k to 3.5k. And if we're taking a look at the daily time frame, right now the price of ETH is actually playing out a new bearish divergence because we've just confirmed a new higher high in the price of ETH in the daily candle closes, while the RSI has just confirmed a new lower high. And so once again, this means that at least in the short term, we're due to see reduced bullish momentum, which usually plays out in the form of either choppy sideways price action or potentially a slight pullback in the price of ETH. But at least as of right now, even though we're due to see reduced bullish momentum in the shorter term, obviously this can still occur within a bullish trend, because technically we're still within this bullish trend on the daily time frame, forming higher lows and higher highs. And if we're taking a look at the 4-hour ETH to US dollar chart, we actually just saw a perfect bounce from this 38.2% Fibonacci level of support in the short term based on the Fibonacci retracement tool on the logarithmic settings. That's sitting at around 2.4k, more specifically around 2460. And so at least in the short term, 2460 is the level of support to pay attention to. And below that, we have this area of previous resistance, which should now act as new support, which is also where the 50% level is sitting at, which is sitting in between around 2380 to around 2410. And so at least in the short term, those are the levels of support to pay attention to. And as for resistance, we could find some resistance at around 2560 as of right now. But overall, we're basically playing out a short-term cool-off to reset the RSI because the RSI recently entered into overbought territories on the 4-hour time frame after fully playing out this bullish divergence, which I talked about since all the way back down here. And once again, if the RSI enters into overbought territories, that means we have limited room to the upside, and we're due to see either some sideways price action or potentially some slight bearish price action to help reset the RSI. And so that's basically the situation right now in the short term. We're technically still trending in the bullish direction, especially on the daily time frame and the weekly time frame. It's just right now we're lacking some bullish momentum in the immediate short term due to this bearish divergence on the daily time frame and also this bearish divergence on the 2-hour time frame. And once again, I talked about this bearish divergence in my last video, basically talking about how it's very likely we're going to see either some choppy sideways price action or potentially some more bearish price action just in the short term. And technically speaking, this bearish divergence is still currently valid, so it's still playing out. And obviously, we also have that bearish divergence on the daily time frame, which is now active. And so obviously, we can see slight bounces in the short term from important levels of support, as I just mentioned. But ultimately, I would not expect a significant amount of bullish momentum, at least in the short term over the next couple of days or so. But if we're taking a look at the ETH BTC chart, this is Ethereum versus Bitcoin on the weekly time frame. And right now, we're playing out a massive bullish divergence pattern here on the weekly chart, because the price action has confirmed a lower low in the weekly candle closes, while the RSI has confirmed a higher low, which is a huge bullish divergence and is now playing out. And on top of that, not only is this giant bullish divergence now playing out on the weekly time frame, of course, we're also bouncing from this significant area of support, exactly where we bounced last time in around the middle of 2022. And if we're taking a look at what happened last time, the last time we bounced from this area of support right here, from the top side of that area of support to the next local high, we saw around a 50% gain in the price of ETH versus Bitcoin. And so basically what that means is, let's just say if you had one Bitcoin, one BTC, and then you traded that Bitcoin into Ethereum. So you sold the Bitcoin and bought Ethereum with that Bitcoin. If you did that right around here, and then you traded that move to the upside, that 50% move, and then traded that Ethereum back into Bitcoin, you would end up with 1.5 BTC. And so ultimately, when it comes to this chart right here, if the chart is going to the downside, if it's bearish, it makes more sense to be holding Bitcoin. But if it's bullish, it makes more sense to be holding Ethereum. Because while this chart is going to the upside, Ethereum is outperforming Bitcoin and vice versa. If the chart is bearish, Bitcoin is outperforming ETH. And not only is the price bouncing from significant support and playing out a massive bullish divergence pattern on the weekly time frame, we're also forming a giant falling wedge pattern as of right now. And technically speaking, a falling wedge pattern is a bullish bias pattern because more often than not, a falling wedge breaks out to the upside, because roughly around 2/3 of the time, a falling wedge breaks to the upside, and about 1/3 of the time, a falling wedge actually breaks to the downside. So it's not impossible to see a bearish outcome from this pattern, but that is simply the less likely scenario. And now, technically speaking, as of right now, we have not confirmed a breakout, but we're getting very close to potentially breaking out above this line of resistance, which is sitting at around 0.061 Bitcoin per Ethereum. And if we simply see a confirmed breakout above that line of resistance with at least a weekly candle close to the upside above that line, then that would set up a technical price target to the upside for the falling wedge pattern, which is at the top of the wedge, sitting at around 0.082 Bitcoin per Ethereum. And so from the point of the breakout to that price target, we're talking around a 30 to 40% gain in the price of ETH versus Bitcoin. And so once again, what that means is if this plays out, that would mean Ethereum is outperforming Bitcoin by over 30%, so having much bigger gains than Bitcoin. And so personally, if we do confirm a breakout for this massive falling wedge pattern, and due to the fact that we're also playing out a bullish divergence on the weekly time frame and bouncing from significant support, then personally, if we see this breakout, I'll be moving some of my Bitcoin holdings, not everything, but just some of my Bitcoin holdings into Ethereum to trade this move to the upside. But as always, that is not personal financial advice. That's just being transparent with my trading strategy when it comes to these trades right here. But if you want to know how you can profit from crypto, no matter if the price is bullish, bearish, or simply chopping around sideways, you can profit in either of those scenarios by watching these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how you can long or short crypto to make money if the price is bullish or bearish, and the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit if the price is chopping around sideways. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.